this. So if the meta's like shifting dramatically, every team is going to end up beholden to the meta at some point. And then basically what's going to happen is better roster is just going to end up winning at a certain point, because a roster with players that are already adept at like a set amount, like a large amount of roles and a large amount of styles of playing the game. So your veteran players, they're going to be the ones that that will excel when the meta shifts like this.
Hello everyone, this is Darius from the Shotcaller, joined here by Veteran. I'm very happy because the H216 meme is real.
Yes.
Was that a goal at the end to make that happen?
It's a very nice... Should I hold it? I don't know. Okay. Okay. It's a very nice last message for the fans, I guess. It's just a nice addition. It obviously wasn't the objective. I would have loved to have won yesterday. Yesterday was always going to be a bit more fiesta. I would have loved to win last week. I would have loved to have won for the last few weeks, but we had big roster difficulties that meant that we've only actually been able to spend 3 games with the roster that we were planning to deliver you guys for a long time. I really want to thank Larson as well. I didn't actually thank him in the interview, but I want to thank Larson for giving us half our wins this split. And for coming in on such short notice. It was such short notice, and we were only able to play 6 games of scrims with him. And despite the fact that he was underprepared for an LCS situation like this, he didn't show any sort of emotional instability on stage. He's one of the best rookies, along with Sheriff, that I've seen for like being a first-time LCS stage person. I've seen players like legitimately not be able to handle it from minute 1 before the cameras start rolling. Even like you can see the pressure getting to them. But there was nothing like that with Larson. Despite how underprepared he was, both in terms of scrims and in terms of he wasn't expecting to play an LCS game. And he performed his job admirably, and on the Azir game he did some pretty brilliant stuff, and he just played the game as he should play the game, and so I really want to thank him for that.
Sadly for us ULCS fans, he didn't play 3 games, because then we would have had a Rookie of the Split award, but
I mean, that wasn't even an option on like a contractual level. If Selfie still had his back broken the next week, we actually had to give Larson up anyway.
What would have happened then? You would have played on stage?
I would have played. I mean, LCS rules don't really allow it, which is a good thing for all the other mid laners out there, because, you know, I want them to keep some semblance of pride before they go onto the international stage. I guess we would have taken a leaf out of IG's book, and Richard Wells would be busting out his mid lane Lee Sin. It's actually insane. So,
that would be really, really exciting to see that one.
It's the Tower of Gold. It's the Tower of Gold.
Man, seeing Rich on stage in an H2k jersey, I can see that happen. I mean, might as well when you have a scoreline like that. But let's talk a bit about that one. So, I mean, you guys made playoffs last split through a miracle run, and you guys still perform admirable against Vitality, in my opinion. A super close game, went right down the wire. But this split really was arguably one of the worst splits for any ULCS team in terms of scoreline, at least.
Yeah, statistically speaking, it is. We're on par with a few teams on scoreline basis, and we're only really above Origin in that basis, which is always going to be like the famously bad team until a team literally doesn't win and does a reverse Fnatic. Also, we're above Team Coast if you count like the other LCS team. The other NALCS, and they've had some pretty bad teams that are probably on par with as well. So this split has been all about like the initial meta patch. Something that I'm going to do from now on is I'm basically going to insist, if I'm told that I should be bringing players in earlier, that will bring players in for the patch that is going to be the patch for LCS. It didn't occur to me that the patch could change that dramatically immediately before LCS, because the patch, I can't remember which one it was. It wasn't 813. It was like, I can't remember. The patch that the first week of LCS was played on.
I believe it was.
So that came out 2 weeks before LCS, and it was a completely different game than the one before that, and we played in the one before that. So teams like G2 only came in and started playing on the 8.11 patch. Like, we know this for a fact. And I think that's the best approach, because then as a team, they were only developing on one thing, whereas we've been developing on a patch that was very similar to the patch we were doing so well in the spring split, and the meta game that we were doing so well in the spring split. And so on top of the fact that the meta wasn't one that was in our favor, I think everyone would identify that we were best after Baron spawn. So after the 20-minute point when the game became all about playing around these neutral objectives and we could force favorable fights with favorable numbers and we understood how to play the game on that level very well, we were much better off in that meta as opposed to the meta that came about where it was basically like if you have 3 winning lanes early, you're going to win the game. You're basically going to win the game and the Baron's not even going to be a factor. And the fact that we can play around that well really doesn't matter because we can't leave our tier 3 towers, which they're about to take down. Whereas teams like Misfits heavily benefited from this type of meta, especially because Senkuks decided to become really strong in lane. I also think that aspects of Senkuks' champion pool was really elevated by the meta at the time. So Misfits got a really good start off because the meta shifted, and I think people had been underrating from talking to people. They didn't expect this, not just because of the Senkuks thing, which I think was everyone, but like Alphari seemed to have been getting a little bit underrated, whereas I always thought he was on par with every other top laner. Like when it came down to the G2 game, it was Alphari versus Wonder. Alphari was doing really well in lane versus them. So they have 3 winning lanes. They can easily transition. And they have an intelligent jungler. If you give an intelligent jungler 3 winning lanes, he'll do all sorts of things with it. Like you've seen Cage will do. Like most games, even when we were having subs, like Cage was actually been getting Giga ahead early. But imagine you have 3 winning lanes and an intelligent jungler and a meta that encourages this type of snowballing. And then a team like Misfits is just obviously going to do well. A team like G2 is obviously going to do well, though G2 went into the funneling strat and they just came in fresh on 8-11, so they could just only practice this if they wanted to. Teams like Fnatic are still going to be solid. And I think the reason that you see Misfits decline is that Misfits didn't actually work on any of their critical issues that even we were abusing them for last split. When the meta started shifting back towards where we were favored last split, we almost beat Misfits again, just based on that type of knowledge, even though Shook was our AD carry, you know? So Misfits didn't actually have to work on that aspect. And now that they would have to, instant decline. Because they didn't actually necessarily need to improve. The meta just shifted to a point where Misfits last split, you transplant them into this and it's all fine. Like, let's face it, when we beat Misfits last split, and I'll use us as like the barometer for it because we were basically the opposite of this. Us and Splice are basically the opposite of what the meta favored right now. We were behind, but Misfits mid-game lane setup was really bad, and we were able to catch Hans Sammer on rotation. And it wasn't like Hans Sammer's fault necessarily. That was like a overall general strategic like fault of how they were playing out their comp. It was the Anivier's real thing. And yeah, they didn't have to improve on that. And they didn't improve on that. Now the meta shifts back there and they immediately have a decline. We were the opposite of that. And then when we could have the upside again, well, on one hand, it was already too late. And on the other hand, we had like really bad time with illnesses and personal crisis and stuff like this, which was just all unavoidable. But we were able to pull out the wins, I guess.
At least 2 of them, yeah. That said, though, it does sound like to me that there are quite a few teams that are very too heavily dependent on certain patches and can't really play on other ones, you know?
That's gonna happen when patches change this often, though, because if you're beholden to a certain type of patch and another patch happens, okay, so I'll use us as the example again. Like we were pretty beholden to a meta where the game is not auto lost at 20 minutes if you're behind, you know. And then suddenly a meta shift comes in where now we have to be really strong early, and we weren't like accelerating fast enough in that phase of the game. And you can blame me for that. Feel free to blame me for that. But for whatever reason, we're not accelerating like in our early game fast enough, but we're working on it, and then it shifts again. And now we're back to where we were before, and it's like that part didn't matter so much anymore, and it was barely even at 50%, and now we're all back into this. So if the meta's like shifting dramatically, every team is going to end up beholden to the meta at some point, and then basically what's going to happen is better roster is just going to end up winning at a certain point, because a roster with players that are already adept at like a set amount, like a large amount of roles and a large amount of styles of playing the game. So your veteran players, they're going to be the ones that will excel when the meta shifts like this. So SOAS is like a huge, really good point for Fnatic. The fact that Caps can play basically anything is a really good point for Fnatic. They have Hylissang, who's been there for God knows how long. He's been around the scene for God knows how long. G2 is nothing but veterans across the board. Whereas on the Misfits side of things, Alfari is still relatively new. This is his second year, this is Hans' second year, this is Mickey X is actually rather young as supports go in Europe, which is strange to say, given that he has actually been here for, well, I think this is his third season now? Yeah. This is his third season, yeah. But he's still actually relatively new compared to, say, Vander.
I think he did go to Worlds and stuff,
yeah.
For sure, yeah.
Vander, Kasing, all this lot, you know? Yeah. Like, people who were literally there in season 3.
Even Promiscu, you know?
Yeah, even Promiscu. Yeah, even Promiscu.
Okay, so at the end of the day, the meta hit the team really hard, and then other issues erupted and that kind of stuff. Still, from a fan perspective, that must really suck. Do you have anything to say to the H2k fans about the split?
Yeah, so for our fans, it obviously sucks. And I'm really sorry that we weren't able to excel in the early game like we should have. I've learned a lot from this split about my approach to teaching certain elements of the game and what I trust players with and what I don't trust players with and what I should and what I shouldn't. And I'm hoping that this off-season I'll be able to rectify all these issues. I know the direction that I need to go for that personally. The players worked really hard. They went through like a lot of issues outside of the game here. And I'm not trying to make excuses for them at all. But I hope that with this game and their performances in the last weeks, despite obvious troubles, you can see that we clearly still have a roster of players that can definitely do things. And I am just really sorry that you weren't able to see more of that. And you guys do deserve to see more of that. And for those of you who joined us in Spring Split and joined the hype train on then, and then were met with this after you're all in, I'm especially sorry to you guys and to the long-time H2k fans. If we are to make franchising next split, it will not be like this again. I can guarantee that much.
That's good to hear from the hype train to the train wreck for now, but we'll see what happens in 2019.
I mean, having a miracle run is nice, since you always have like, so this split it was like, oh, Giants are going for the miracle run, and I remember like in the old times it was like Rockout are going for the miracle run, you know, Unicorns were going for the miracle run, you know, like Unicorns were going for it at the same time as us, actually. Yeah. But like the year before that, Rockhats suddenly started beating people, remember? Like, and so there are always teams that are going for the miracle run. Now every time I see a team is going for the miracle run, it's like, well, we did the miracle run. So it's like, they're trying to pull a H2k now, you know? Oh, okay. It's nice to at least have that. This split, I'm going to make sure it's just one split for me. Like, I can think of plenty of coaches that have had like a horrible split. And I know that this doesn't have to define my career, and I'll do everything to make sure that it doesn't. And if I'm somewhat undesirable to teams and stuff, because I don't want people to think that I'm delusional about this, I'm fully aware that like it's going to be very difficult for a lot of us to get jobs next split given our performances. I'll do everything that I can to get my name into the fold again and to make sure, again, this is just one split. And if I do end up in a situation where I'm not necessarily able to like pick and choose roster or anything like that, I will know how to adapt my approach, because I didn't know how to adapt my approach, and that's on me. That's on me entirely. So I have a long off season to work on that. I have longer than all of the people that I would consider rivals to work on that. And I'll be prepared for anything the split after. So.
And the good news is that you got to beat Peter Dunn, who I believe was one of your rivals.
Peter Dunn's a really good friend of mine. Yeah. So I've actually known Peter for like 4 years now. He actually met me and we talked a bit after this game. Actually, it was really nice. It was like, I sent Schalke to you guys in the quarterfinals. Please just beat them. Schalke, it's always nice to beat your old team. Wish we'd beaten them the first time as well, but zip, Poppy's out the game now. Free win. So I guess I did manage to take on two I consider rivals. Vindy, LCS, like I've always been good friends with Grabs, so I would have liked to have shown a better performance versus G2 this split. Last split, had a really funny game against them where we were like 11-0 down and then we won. That was so hilarious.
Let's not remember that one, because that one triggers me to this day. No.
Oh, God. But that one was really funny because I was telling the Fishio on Skype that like Fnatic and G2 can't play around Baron properly. So if I just draft a Baron-based team, I don't care what happens. I'm just gonna win that game. I swear to God. Nice. And then it literally went like as bad as it was possible to get, and Officio was casting.
He got the prep set ahead basically, so he got lucky there.
It was so funny actually. But I wish we could have put a better performance against them this split. I really like YoungBuck. I'm really glad that, I mean, obviously I would have preferred to win last split, but I'm really glad that he was able to win last split and that he's showing a good performance this split, because I actually really do think that it was unfair that G2 blamed him. Didn't blame him, but that they let him go, or didn't think for some reason that he would be good to rebuild the roster, or to, like, I don't know why they thought that there was, like, no offense to Grabs, of course, who again is a good friend of mine, who I do think is smart. But it's just, I don't think Joey should have taken the fall for anything, especially not for like international problems or anything like that. Joey's always being like very smart about figuring out where to slot in. Where he's slotting in on Fnatic now is very different to where he's slotting in on G2. But YoungBuck was always able to correctly identify what holes the team needs plugged, and he would just do it because it's your job, and I always respected that. And I'm very happy for him that he's doing well on Fnatic and that he's showing everyone that it was like wrong what happened to him in the off season.
Yeah, I can mostly agree with it for sure. I think
I'd very much like to kick his ass next split. So.
Okay, well, we'll see about that. 2019 will be very exciting for EU for sure. That said, I think you already said everything to the fans. So thank you very much for your time. Make sure to follow Veteran on Twitter, of course, for talent recommendations and looking for team tweets from players.
I do want to actually apologize in the off chance that anybody who is Master Tier Plus is watching this. I didn't retweet them for the last 2 weeks. I've been absent from Twitter for obvious reasons. I've only very briefly gone on there when someone's told me that there's something that I should see or something like that. And I've been avoiding it. Normally, I just retweet Master Tier Plus LFT tweets, and I will get back onto doing that. And I will look to actually do more stuff with you guys this off-season for sure. So yeah, sorry if I go on Twitter now and see a bunch of DMs and I didn't reply to you. Sorry about that.
Should be fine, should be fine. Thank you very much for your time. This was Veteran and Darius from the Shotcaller. I hope you had a good day. See you then. Hey everyone, this is Darius from the Shotcaller, and I hope you just enjoyed that video. This is a generic end card, of course, so make sure to click here for a different interview, or here for a different interview, or about here to subscribe to the Shotcaller. We very much appreciate your support, and see you guys next time. Bye bye.